Have you ever stopped to think about how life loves to go against the perfect plans that we outline? That's that. While many believe that fortune, power, and titles are the right ingredients to build a love story, life, that damned unpredictable thing, proves otherwise. Just imagine a young CEO, shaped to be the perfect successor, with brides handpicked by his own grandmother, based on signs, fortunes, and spiritual alignments. And even so, with everything conspiring in favor of a perfect marriage, fate decided to make a trip that no one expected. In a twist that not even the most daring soap operas would dare to write. He didn't fall in love with any of the carefully selected millionaire brides. Instead, he lost his heart, in a fulminating way, for a simple young woman, blind and, until then, invisible to that golden society. Sound crazy? Perhaps. But it is precisely in these madness that the truest stories live. And what few have the courage to say is that, in the real world, real love is not concerned with status, nor with a bank account. It happens in a raw, unexpected, and sometimes inconvenience. In this video, you'll discover how Christopher and Mandy defied everything and everyone to prove that love, dignity, and inner strength weigh far more than any famous surname or arranged marriage. Get ready, because what you see will overturn your certainties about what it takes to be happy, and maybe even shine a new light inside your chest. And, believe me, this story is much more real than it seems. Chapter 1. Family tries to control love destiny. When Christopher was born, his grandfather already said that this boy would be a respected CEO. And like any self-respecting grandfather, he mixed ancient wisdom with a good dose of stubbornness. For him, love was a serious thing, almost like choosing a partner for life. It didn't take long for the old man to start consulting astrology, chakra alignment, numerology, and even the mood of the sun and moon to find the perfect bride for his grandson. While Christopher tried to balance his business decisions, there was his grandfather waving esoteric necklaces and matrimonial resumes as if selecting executives for the top management. The pressure was such that even family gatherings felt like a camouflaged HR interview. Just imagine, Mandy, a young woman with a simple appearance and a gigantic heart, would never be considered in that circus of interests. The important thing is financial alignment, shouted his grandfather in the midst of a dinner washed down with expensive wine and forced smiles. No one there wanted to know about real love. They were looking for camouflaged marriage contracts. Christopher, however, looked at the moon through the window and wondered, can true love, the one that makes the sun rise differently in the chest, be chosen like this, in the calendar of the stars? Sometimes, life puts difficult decisions in front of us. It's not much different from when a CEO has to choose between pleasing the board of directors or following intuition. And, my friend, you may have noticed, most of the time, what really makes the difference is that stubborn little voice in the depths of the soul. If you feel like you're living to please others, stop now. A good example? Read The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. There, you'll see how solid principles are worth more than gold. And that goes for business and love, too. Christopher, in his youth, still believed that he could find a balance between what his grandfather wanted and what his heart whispered. It was like trying to mix water and oil. The grandfather talked about protecting the future of his CEO grandson, but forgot that love, in order to flourish, needs freedom. Just as a necklace of moon and sun is only beautiful because it brings together the opposite in harmony, Christopher would need to learn, the hard way, that imposed love does not take root, only facade. After all, what CEO can truly lead when he doesn't have the courage to lead his own life? Behind every attempt at control, there was also an unspoken fear. The grandfather saw in Christopher not only his grandson, but the family legacy. It was as if the whole story depended on that young man. And, let's face it, who hasn't felt pressured to live up to expectations that weren't even theirs? Mandy, the simple, blind woman who didn't even imagine being part of that game, carried a freedom that no Harvard degree could buy. That was what Christopher needed, but he was still caught between the golden promises that shone as bright as a false sun. And it was on one of those party nights that everything began to change. As the guests danced, showing their best smiles and hiding their worst intentions, Christopher saw something. A discreet glow, half hidden, like the moon that insists on appearing in the middle of the clouds. a small necklace with half moon, half sun, hanging around the neck of someone who seemed not to belong in that world. And, unknowingly, a new chapter opened there, where the forgotten love of childhood would begin to haunt, or illuminate, his life as a CEO. Chapter 2, Moon and Sun Necklace Symbol. It is said that some objects carry more than matter, carry stories. And in that gilded environment of business and interests, the moon and sun necklace that Mandy wore seemed almost like a silent affront. While most sported millionaire jewelry to mark territory, that necklace, simple and aged, seemed to scream something much more precious: authenticity. Christopher, though wrapped in contracts and dollar signs, felt a sting in his chest when he saw that symbol. It was like finding a lost piece of yourself again, like seeing your grandfather telling you stories about men who followed the right star and, with that, changed their destinies. The necklace was not just an accessory, it was a map, even if Christopher didn't know it yet. There, in that small piece, half moon and half sun, was hidden the echo of a childhood love, that pure love, which does not weigh, which does not charge, which only exists. It was the kind of thing that no meeting of CEOs, not even family councils watered down with imported wines, could teach. And here's an object lesson for you. Keep, somewhere in your life, symbols that remind you of who you really are. It can be a book, a letter, even a simple necklace forgotten in a drawer. If you stop to think about it, life works like that necklace, half light, half shadow. There is no sun without a moon, nor success without a few falls. Christopher's grandfather knew this, but in his eagerness to protect his grandson, he ended up erasing half of the story. Mandy, even though blind, seemed to see more than everyone there. With the wisdom of someone who knows darkness, she knew that to value the sun, it was first necessary to embrace the night. And perhaps this is the great art of living, accepting that the best alliances are made of imperfection and truth, not appearances and figures. Christopher, confused, found himself hypnotized, not because of the brightness of the necklace, but because of the strange feeling of home that image aroused. It was like when you smell a smell that transports you to a lost moment of childhood, a smell of cake in the oven, a distant sound of laughter. There, between men in tailored suits and women in evening gowns, a simple woman with a simple necklace was about to turn her world upside down. And it's amazing how it's these small, almost invisible things that change everything. It's like they say, the devil lives in the details, and so does love. The symbol of the moon and the sun, present in Mandy's necklace, spoke of balance. To accept that true love is not perfect, it is not the idealized contract that the grandfather dreamed of for his CEO grandson. Love, deep down, is embracing the light and shadow of the other. It is knowing that no one is just sun, no one is just moon. If you want to apply this to your life, look at the relationships you cultivate. Are they based on fake brilliance or authenticity? A good exercise is to write down in a notebook 3 of your qualities and 3 imperfections, and then ask yourself, does the person who is with me love all this, or just part of me? And at that party, as toasts were raised and false promises were sealed, Christopher saw, even if he didn't fully understand, that his life was going to change. It would not be because of the grandfather's decisions, nor because of business councils or family alliances. It would be for something much stronger, more subtle. It would be for the reunion with an ancient truth, engraved in the symbol of that half-forgotten necklace around the neck of a young woman who, unlike everyone there, did not need eyes to see someone's soul. And, as you can imagine, this story was just beginning. Chapter 3, The Blind Young Woman Faces Humiliation. In the mansion lit by crystal chandeliers, Mandy looked like a fish out of water. His simple manner, his sincere smile, his silent presence. Everything about her was an uncomfortable reminder that inside, not everything that glittered was gold. Employees whispered, some women laughed discreetly, men avoided contact as if her blindness was contagious. But Mandy, with the dignity that only those who know true darkness carry, walked proudly, without bending over. Christopher, from afar, watched, and deep down he knew. This was the kind of woman his grandfather would never approve of a successful CEO. It was easy to make fun of Mandy. It was hard to have half her courage. While others used vision to judge, she used her heart to understand. And you know what? Life is a lot like a game of chess. The one who moves the fastest does not win, but the one who knows how to look beyond the pieces. How many times in your life have you judged someone just by their cover? Here's a practical tip. The next time you meet someone, ask them something true, like, "What is your biggest dream?" You will be surprised. Who knows? Like Christopher, you too won't rediscover the strength hidden in the most unlikely places. Mandy, as she faced the looks loaded with pity or contempt, remembered her grandfather's words. Yes, she had one too. An old storyteller who said that the moon never competed with the sun, it only shone at its right time. And isn't it that, even blind, Mandy saw people's hearts better than many CEOs with perfect vision? Christopher began to wonder, what value does a woman who sees contracts but doesn't feel love have? And what is this fortune that does not buy the ability to see what really matters? And the days passed, full of parties, gifts, veiled agreements. Mandy continued to be the target of mean comments, as if dignity were an outdated thing in the world of figures. However, with each humiliation, she became even stronger. Christopher's grandfather didn't understand, but that woman, who was not fit to adorn the parties of the elite, was precisely the one who could save her grandson from the emptiness that is having everything and being nothing. Anyone who has read The Little Prince knows the essential is invisible to the eye. And look at the irony. Mandy, who did not see with her eyes, saw with her soul. Christopher tried, in vain, to convince himself that it was all exaggeration, that his grandfather knew what he was doing, that Mandy was just a distraction. But it was hard to ignore the fact that, in the midst of so many make-up faces and trained smiles, this young blind woman had something that no one else seemed to have: truth. And deep down, we all know how to recognize the truth when it crosses our path, right? Even if we try to pretend we didn't see it. The moon and sun necklace seemed to shine even brighter on Mandy's chest, as if to say, "Look right, Christopher. Your story is right in front of you." The CEO, accustomed to dealing with spreadsheets, contracts, and billionaire agreements, began to realize that real life could not be measured in metrics or performance reports. Mandy, with her humble and resilient manner, was the true heir to something much bigger than money. She owned a kind of wealth that few there would be able to comprehend. But Christopher's penny would still take a while to drop. After all, before understanding the value of light, it is necessary to go through the darkness that illusions create. And the illusions were about to crumble. Chapter 4. Reunion with the Past. It was strange how certain memories seemed to echo in the chest, even when the mind insisted on forgetting them. Christopher, in front of Mandy, felt that uncomfortable feeling of déjà vu. It wasn't just the moon and sun necklace. It was the way she laughed softly, how she pronounced certain words. Everything about him screamed, "You already know her." But how? If she seemed so far removed from the bubble that her grandfather had created around him. It was on a cold night, while Mandy was innocently telling about an orange orchard she frequented as a child, that the memory surfaced like lightning passing through the sky. Christopher recalled a forgotten summer where a blonde boy was playing with a bright-eyed girl. An afternoon in which they promised, under an old orange tree, that they would never be separated. She wore a necklace, half moon, half sun, the same necklace. How could I have forgotten something so important? Perhaps the answer was simple: growing hardens the heart. Have you ever felt that too? That feeling that, when you became an adult, you left pieces of yourself behind? That's that. The good news is that they can be found again, sometimes where we least expect them. Mandy unknowingly spoke of memories that were like keys to doors that Christopher had locked long ago. And her every word seemed to turn those keys, unlocking forgotten emotions. It wasn't hard to see that this blind woman was the same little girl he had sworn to protect. But how to tell this to a status-obsessed grandfather? How to accept that fate, so carefully engineered by numbers and astral alignments, had made a bold turn to bring true love back? Christopher was about to discover that ignoring the call of the soul comes at a very high price. And it's interesting how life leaves clues, like someone who throws pieces of bread into a dark forest. Mandy was one of those living clues, a message that read, "Hey, remember who you really are." The bond between them was so strong that neither her blindness nor his prejudices could erase it. But you know how it is, right? Sometimes we need to break our faces and hearts a few times before we accept that what really matters is not on the New Year's goal lists. It is in the small moments, in the sincere gestures, in what money cannot buy. The necklace, which already seemed magical in itself, became a charm of hope, as if to say to Christopher, choose with your heart or repent forever. And, let's face it, how many times have we ignored the most obvious signs for fear of disappointing others? If you feel like you're doing it today, here's a piece of advice from a friend. Take a deep breath and listen to your heart. It may be difficult now, but in the long run, it's the only choice that will make sense. And Christopher was about to discover that, even though he was CEO, he was not the one who ran the script of his own life. Chapter 5: Family Conflicts and Secrets Exposed. When the heart decides to walk along unauthorized trails, the storm is inevitable. Christopher had barely begun to accept Mandy's presence at his fate, and he could already feel the ground shaking beneath his feet. The family, of course, did not take long to notice. The gossip ran faster than any CEO meeting. It only took one night, an unpretentious dance between Christopher and Mandy, for the secrets to start spreading like gunpowder. An envious cousin, a gold-digging aunt, even malicious employees. Everyone had something to gain by throwing mud at that story. That's when the accusations came. Mandy was said to be an adventurer who had pretended to be blind to seduce the young CEO and get her hands on the fortune. They even said that she was planning a pregnancy to ensure the future. Slander on all sides. And Christopher, between the sword of reason and the shield of emotion, began to doubt what he saw and felt. Have you ever been through something similar? When the whole world tries to convince you that what you feel is wrong. At these times, friend, a good antidote is to dive into books like The Weapons of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini to understand the power and the danger of social influence. Meanwhile, the grandfather, desperate, tried to manipulate the invisible threads of fate. He proposed deals, promised worlds and funds to any woman who could push Mandy away. He, who talked so much about energy and chakra alignment, seemed to have forgotten that true energy is born from genuine love, not blackmail. And, ironically, the more he fought his grandson's feelings, the stronger the bond between Christopher and Mandy grew. It's like the saying goes, the more you try to put out a true flame, the more it spreads. Ancient secrets began to surface. Hidden documents, hidden inheritances, false alliances between powerful families. Mandy, who had always been seen as a simple blind woman, actually had noble blood running through her veins. His grandfather, a close friend of Christopher's grandfather in the past, had been betrayed and stripped of his fortune. Mandy was the true heir to a significant part of that empire that today held so many vanities. The irony was delicious. The one they humiliated was richer in history, and perhaps in heritage, than everyone there. The tension reached a point where family reunions felt more like battlefields. Fake smiles, poisoned toasts, hugs with knives in the back. And Christopher, immersed in this dirty game, began to understand that it was not enough to choose love. It was necessary to fight for it. A practical example of this: if you believe in a project, a person, or an idea, defend it, even when it seems insane. Great entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, for example, were called crazy before they changed the world. And who would have thought? Mandy was changing Christopher's world. Between lavish parties and embarrassing dinners, the truth, like the sun breaking through the fog, began to emerge. Mandy didn't have to justify herself. Her story spoke for her. And Christopher, even torn between duty and feeling, began to see that the true CEO of his own life is not the one who pleases everyone, but the one who has the courage to lose the whole world to gain himself. And with each revelation, the stage was being set for the biggest twist that family had ever seen. Chapter 6: Breaking Illusions and Alliances. It was on a particularly sweltering night that Christopher understood once and for all. The alliances that surrounded him were as fragile as sandcastles. Mandy, with her disarmed serenity, watched from afar as the CEO tried to hold on to deals that had already rotted inside. One by one, previously smiling faces revealed their true intentions. It's that old story. In the bonanza, everyone is a brother. In the storm, everyone runs to their own side. And Christopher, once surrounded by friends and allies, was now naked before the truth. Mandy, far from being just a blind and simple young woman, turned out to be a born strategist. When she found out her true origin, she didn't rush to throw it in everyone's faces. No, With the wisdom of the sun that knows when to shine, she waited, observed, studied. And when he spoke, he made the entire families tremble. You know that feeling of seeing a domino piece fall and take everything else? That was it. If you want to take a practical lesson from here, be like Mandy. In times of crisis, keep a cool head. Study, plan, observe. The right action at the right time is worth 1,000 impulses. The rings crumbled as Christopher watched, between relief and despair. Mandy exposed hidden contracts, veiled betrayals, and even fraud that directly affected the family's assets. But he did not do it out of revenge. He did it for justice. And, in the process, he lost many who called themselves friends. But, as every wise person knows, it is better to walk alone than in bad company. And here's a valuable piece of advice. Whenever you can, detox your relationships. Remove from life those who vibrate envy, who dry up their energy like emotional parasites. You will feel the difference. The revelation of Mandy's true identity wasn't just a blow to the wounded prides. It was a blow to Christopher's soul. He realized that in his blind quest to fulfill expectations, he had drifted away from who he really was. Mandy, the blind girl, the strong woman, the rightful heiress. She was everything he wanted to be, authentic. And, let's face it, in a world where people exchange their essence for likes and status, finding someone who stays true to themselves is rarer than finding a needle in a haystack. And so, on a full moon night, of course, because the universe loves a good dramatic script, Mandy broke Christopher's last illusion, that he needed the approval of others to be happy. The image of the grandfather, of the business, of the perfect CEO, all that turned to dust in the face of the overwhelming force of authenticity. And you know what's more beautiful? When we courageously break what is false, it makes room for the true to flourish. And in this new space that was born between them, something much bigger was about to happen. The necklace of moon and sun now seemed to shine brighter than ever, as if confirming, all pain, all betrayal, all fear. All of this was worth it to get there. But, like any story that defies conventions and messes with old structures, the challenges were not yet over. And Christopher and Mandy were about to face the ultimate test of their lives, where true love would be the only currency that could buy freedom. Chapter 7. Attempts at a New Beginning and Justice. After the hurricane comes silence. Christopher and Mandy needed a fresh start, but starting over, isn't always easy. The grandfather, seeing his grandson determined to follow his own heart, finally understood that love is like a river. There is no point in trying to stop it. He always finds a way. And it was in a surprising gesture that the old man, tired and emotional, called Mandy for a conversation. There, between crossed words and looks of regret, a new alliance began to be born, made not of interests, but of respect. Christopher, for his part, made a decision that few would have courage for. He temporarily stepped away from the family business to rebuild his own history in his own way. It was like trading the comfortable position of CEO for a leap in the dark. And here's a practical tip for you who feel like you need to start over. Study the history of Ray Dalio. He broke his own company, endured public humiliation, and then built one of the world's largest investment managers. Starting over hurts, but sometimes it's the only way to truly grow. Mandy, now recognized as the rightful heir to a colossal fortune, has decided not to live under the same system that hurt her. Instead of becoming just another powerful woman in the old world mold, she accepted the challenge of leading a purpose-driven business group. And you, have you ever stopped to think about what legacy you want to leave? I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about invisible marks that you're going to leave on people and the world. Mandy's story teaches that power without purpose is just vanity, and vanity does not buy happiness. In the hospital, after a minor accident caused by the recent tensions, Christopher reflected on everything. Mandy stayed by his side the entire time, holding his hand firmly, not with pity, but with love. It was there, amidst the strong smell of ether and cold lights, that he understood, real justice is not revenge. It is reparation. It's not about destroying those who have wronged you, but building something so beautiful that proves that nothing can bring you down. Mandy didn't seek revenge, she sought a fresh start. And that, my friends, is a force that moves mountains. While recovering, Christopher received visits from former allies. Some apologized, Others tried to align again. But he now saw everything with different eyes. Mandy had taught him that, like the necklace of moon and sun, life is made of contrasts. Those who are loyal in the dark night deserve to walk by their side when the sun rises. Those who only show up at the party deserve to stay outside when the gates close. And so, between new beginnings and route adjustments, their story took a new turn, still full of surprises. But the great battlefields of life do not only happen in the meeting rooms or at lavish dinners. Sometimes they happen in the silent glance, in the sincere handshake, in the silent choices that change everything. And as Mandy and Christopher rebuilt their paths, new conflicts, more subtle, more treacherous, were looming on the horizon, ready to test not only their business skills, but, most importantly, the strength of the love that insisted on blossoming between them. Chapter 8: Business and Emotional Dispute. The business market is a complicated animal. It is not for the faint of heart. And now, with Mandy at the helm of an empire of her own and Christopher returning to business with a new vision, the silent war between the families has begun. It was no longer just about figures. It was about wounded pride, about proving who was worthy to carry the legacy. At every social event, at every conference, at every charity gala, eyes crossed like swords. It wasn't just a business battle. It was an emotional dance where whoever fell first would lose much more than money. Christopher and Mandy had to learn fast. In an environment where every smile can hide a stab, trusting each other was a matter of survival. And here's a practical application for your life. Choose your rings wisely. Read The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene to understand how to protect yourself without losing your soul in the process. Mandy, even without seeing, saw much more than those who thought they dominated the game. She felt the energy of the people, the vibration of the environment, something that no MBA teaches. Meetings have become arenas of subtlety. Every word weighed tons. Every gesture was calculated. Christopher learned, under Mandy's watchful eye, to play this game without losing who he was. The love between them, although silent during public events, was the pillar that kept them standing. And you? Do you already have your pillars defined? In times of crisis, it's easy to get lost in anxiety. Having something or someone that reminds you of who you are, a purpose, a dream, a person, makes all the difference. At big business parties, where five-figure champagne was poured and rings were sealed amid forced laughter, Christopher and Mandy created their own secret language. A touch of the hand, a discreet smile, a light movement of the moon and sun necklace. It was their way of remembering that, in the midst of so many games, theirs was the only love that didn't need to be played. And believe me, in the real world, sometimes it's this little invisible link that saves you from emotional breakdown. With each victory or defeat in the business world, the love between Christopher and Mandy was tested and, surprisingly, strengthened. The dispute was not only against greedy competitors, but against the very fear of losing oneself in the midst of so much power and temptation. If you are looking for a lesson here, take note. Great external achievements are only worth if you also conquer yourself. What's the point of winning the world and losing your soul, as the old saying goes? And Mandy, with her unwavering serenity, was the living reminder that the soul, that is priceless. But the battles were far from over. Great revelations still hung in the air, like heavy clouds ready to collapse. And when the storm came, only those who had deep roots would survive. Mandy and Christopher, together, were about to face the last and most important challenge, proving that true love not only stands the test of time, but also flourishes under pressure. Chapter 9: Final Revelation of Feelings. It was at a gala event, one of those that come out in all magazines, that the truth came out once and for all. Mandy, in a simple dress, contrasting with the exaggerated sparkles of the other women, entered the room next to Christopher. And that was enough for the sharp looks, the sharp tongues, and the malicious rumors to begin. Only this time, neither she nor he hid, because there was something bigger, something stronger, pulsating between them, the certainty that they were each other in spite of everything. Christopher, with the moon and sun necklace in his hands, knelt down before everyone. It was a shock. The powerful CEO, accustomed to controlling meetings and markets, now surrendered there, vulnerable. And you know, vulnerability is the greatest act of courage that exists. If you want to change your life, risk being vulnerable with those who deserve it. Mandy, with tears in her blind eyes, smiled. And in that smile, Christopher saw more than an answer. He saw a new beginning. There were no far-fetched speeches, no golden promises. Only the most sincere confession one can make. I choose you, in spite of everything. Christopher, at that moment, chose true love and gave up the need to please the world. It was beautiful. It was real. And it was a powerful reminder that sometimes what the whole world thinks is madness is actually the purest form of sanity. Those present, divided between applause and poisonous whispers, watched the scene in uncomfortable silence. The truth is that, deep down, everyone wanted what Christopher and Mandy had, something that cannot be bought, sold, negotiated. Something that can only be built with courage. And if you're reading this right now, here's a challenge. When was the last time you chose with your heart and not with fear? Christopher and Mandy, intertwined not only by hands, but by destinies, understood there that true love is not measured in rings, or contracts. He measures himself in daily choices, in small and meaningful gestures. And if there's one thing this story teaches, it's because sometimes it is in the imperfection of the now that the most beautiful love lives. And as they sealed their commitment there, under the doubtful eyes and envious hearts, a new stage, even more challenging, appeared on the horizon. Because loving is just the beginning. Keeping love alive, in the midst of the storm, would be the real challenge. Chapter 10, Personal Overcoming and Empowerment. Mandy, the simple, blind young woman who had been humiliated, was now viewed with respect and even with some reverence. Not because he screamed, not because he displayed power, but because, in a world of masks, she had the courage to be who she was. And look, there's nothing more revolutionary than that. Mandy proved that true empowerment doesn't come from fiery speeches or social media posts. It comes from the quiet courage to remain whole while the world tries to break you into pieces. At the helm of the business group she had inherited, Mandy implemented profound changes. Inclusion programs, social projects, structural reforms. She really wanted to make a difference. And here's a provocation. What impact are you leaving in your environment? If you don't know it yet, try to get involved in something that challenges you to think beyond yourself. It can be a volunteer, a community project, small actions that, like drops of water, form an ocean of transformation. Christopher, now more mature, walked beside her, not as the one who guides her, but as the one who chooses to be a partner on the journey. And this is important. True love is not about possession, it is about support. When two whole beings meet, they propel themselves upwards, they do not drag themselves downwards. Mandy and Christopher were living proof of that. The moon and the sun finally together, not to dazzle, but to illuminate each other. Even in the face of new intrigues and challenges, because they never completely disappear, Mandy stood her ground. His blindness, once seen as weakness, became a symbol of strength. After all, seeing the world with the heart is a skill that few have. What about you? Are you seeing life with the right eyes? Maybe it's time to turn a blind eye to the expectations of others and open your heart to what you really want. Their happy ending was not a fairy tale. It was conquered with tears, falls, and scars. But it was real. And deep down, that's what we all need. Less storefront perfection and more imperfect truths that feed the soul. Mandy and Christopher have built not only a business empire, but a life of meaning, respect, and true love. And their journey teaches us a precious lesson. No matter how many times the world tries to bring you down, as long as there is a little bit of hope shining inside you, like a discreet moon in the middle of the night, you can, and should, fight to make your own sun rise. And now tell me, how many times have you stopped following what you really felt, just because you were afraid of what others would think? How many times have you hidden your true moon and sun necklace to fit other people's expectations? Maybe it's time to stop molding yourself to please the world and start building your own love story, success, and, above all, truth. Look at your life today. Are you choosing with your heart or with fear? He's living to be accepted or to be happy. Christopher and Mandy prove to us that the price of authenticity can be high, but that of falsehood is much higher. And deep down, we all know there is no greater victory than being able to look back on your own journey and proudly say, I have been true to who I really am. So, I ask you, are you ready to live as the protagonist of your own story? Or will you continue to let others choose your script? Answer here in the comments. I want to know your opinion, because maybe today is the beginning of your new chapter. And of course, if this content moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. This way you continue to follow stories that not only excite, but also challenge and transform the way we see life.